Hey, this is the Entertainment Advice Channel. What I want to talk about today is the topic of, does Christianity ruin entertainment? So when it comes to this video, what I'll be discussing is the topic of, is the more Christian a society is, for that matter, alongside the more they have direct control of the media we look at, do they actually ruin the quality of good quality entertainment for that matter, let alone entertainment as a whole, okay? So that's what I'll be discussing today in as simple and straightforward a way as possible. So if you're interested in knowing if it is or not, then watch this video in order to find out. So now I mentioned that, let's get started. So when it comes to the question, absolutely yes. Yes, Christianity does ruin entertainment. It definitely has historically done it and will continue to do it as long as Christianity and entertainment have anything to do with each other, to put it bluntly, okay? Now, I just want to make it clear, okay, because I know this has become a very big trend on the internet nowadays. It used to be even worse 10 plus years ago. To answer your question at the end of the day, if you want to be a Christian, that is your personal choice, okay? No one should hate on you and judge you and just straight up terrorize and make fun of you for being a Christian, okay? There is psychological reasons why we need to have religion society, whether it's actually objectively true or not. It's been proven numerous times, which I think should be kind of self-explanatory why it's needed, which is a word that's a four-letter word that starts with H. I think it's kind of self-explanatory, especially when you take into consideration some people will have it just bad for that matter. Okay, I do believe we do need religion. It does make the world better, even from the perspective of an agnostic person like myself. I have to admit, religion does actually help make the world better. So if you want to be a Christian, okay, go ahead. That's your personal choice, okay? I can't force you to believe in something that you believe in, okay? I can't force you to believe in something, um, you know, that is against your will, okay? That's honest truth here, okay? But the problem is, it's not really if you want to personally be Christian. The problem is, like a lot of Christians, when you force your beliefs onto other people. And when it comes to the question of entertainment, as you can already see, which I'm talking about for this video, it clearly tells a lot of Christians do ruin entertainment, okay? Which is what I'll be getting to for this video, okay? And even though, of course, this has been a very controversial topic for a long time, and people don't want to admit it, the truth of the matter is Christians definitely ruin the quality of entertainment, okay? And even when we look at the history going back in time, and even just kind of even now, we can see Christians have a history of ruining entertainment when they are actually involved in entertainment or public sentiment due to the high prevalence of amount of Christians impact entertainment, okay? Because the truth is, let's of course get started by going back in time. Let's look at entertainment in 1900s, okay? All the way to the 1990s, okay? When you look at the history of course entertainment, okay, everything from TV shows, movies, music, and stuff, Christians have always been hateful of some of the things nowadays we would consider some of the most conservative things imaginable. They fucking hate it, okay? Because the thing is, Christianity, like anything, is down to different interpretations, and a lot of people have interpretations that, of course, are extreme. Some people just in general have personalities that are just very extreme ones. They go from one extreme to another, okay? And when it comes to Christianity, it's definitely no different. And when we look at the history of Christianity, all the things that we consider masterpieces today, we take so for granted it's not even funny. Everything from obviously the jazz music that was popular in the early 1900s to the mafia movies, to the Wild West movies, to just in general the overall music that was popular, like the beginning of rock and roll, which now we just call rock music, all that type of stuff, to be honest with you. All that stuff was actually historically extremely hated by Christianity, okay? When we look at the history of the 20th century, okay? Let alone the past few hundred years, but to make things simple, the 20th century, okay? Christians have always been against it, okay? Because Christianity, as we all know, has a system known as sinning, okay? And, this idea that if you do this many bad things, you're going to go to hell, if you sin too much, in other words, you're not going to have a good afterlife, yada, yada, yada. Christianity is obsessed with the idea of sinning, okay? And when you look at American media back then, um, the things that they had back then that was produced, a lot of Christians hated it, okay? And they still hate it now, but they hated it just as much, if not even more back then, because it's completely new to what they're used to, okay? They hated things like mafia movies and cowboy movies and all that stuff because they felt it promoted violence, and of course, violence is a sin, as the Bible said itself, as we all know. Infamously, it says, "Thou shalt not kill," which in itself is kind of doesn't take into complications of reality. But anyway, the Bible roughly says, "Thou shalt not kill." And obviously, when you see people kill each other, according to Christians, they felt it was not only showing something that's a sin happen, but they felt it was promoting sin. Like making people think it's cool to kill people and all that type of stuff, though. Of course, in music, we can't forget about that, which, of course, is on the music at the time, promoted things like drug use, sex, and all that type of stuff, and rebelling against the parents, which Christianity has historically been against all those three things. So, to sum things up, Christianity historically has been against any form of entertainment. And the thing is, they just don't seem to understand it as a whole, that it's just entertainment. It's not necessarily a reflection of what people should do in real life, but they never really understand it. And I'm not saying Christians, like the hundreds of millions of billions of Christians who live across the world, even at that time period, that roughly that time period in the 20th century, I'm not even getting into that. What I'm getting into, to be quite blunt and honest with you, is simply down to the fact of the matter that the people who, of course, were the leaders of Christianity, and of course the ones who follow the book as intensely, because the book has historically been against those things, were against showing those things in honesty, which is just kind of dumb. So what I'm trying to say here is that Christianity being heavily influenced in the entertainment industry is just not how entertainment works, okay? Christianity is a religion, and is a religious system that's obsessed about what happens to you after you die, as well as it's a belief system that relates to the idea of God, a theory about God to be more exact. And like anything that relates to religion, mixing it with actual, of course, you guessed it, entertainment, is a horrible thing to fucking do. And it's always going to result in problems, because Christianity, like I was getting at before, is a theory. We don't know if it's true or not. Like anything. It's just like when we die. How do we know where there's an afterlife at all, for that matter? Whether heaven or hell. How the fuck do we know? We don't know. So, like anything, we don't know if it's true or not. So, to think that we're going to have a belief system that we don't know is completely true or not and associate with something like entertainment is a terrible idea. So, in short, to answer your question, that is the simple truth of the matter. Okay, that's the first reason why Christianity should not be influenced, or more like influential in entertainment, as it can cause problems. Okay, the second problem with Christianity, when it comes to entertainment, is of course the parental factor. Now, this one is of course controversial. I know I'm not trying to get in your personal life, to be honest with you. I'm not trying to get into what's going on in your household for the people who are watching this video. That's not my concern, okay? I don't care about that stuff, okay? That's not my interest. I'm talking about overall, collectively, in general, for the tens of millions of people who are young in North America, let alone the world, who have parents who do not want their kids to look at every and anything, okay? Let alone, more specifically, do not want them to watch anything that have things like violence and sex and drugs and all that stuff, even if it's not the most intense stuff, okay? That is the honest truth about, as I know you would know, about a lot of parents. A lot of parents do not like their kids looking at stuff. Even if they're teenagers, they don't like it, no matter how much you explain this stuff. And a lot of that is highly influenced by Christianity. Christianity is this belief system that doesn't make things very clear, and of course encourages people who are just, a lot of them are just either just dumb or even just straight up miserable and don't want their kids to be happy, or even both, to just use Christianity as a way to justify them not being able to consume media and entertainment, for that matter, more specifically entertainment, because they feel it's a bad influence on kids and encourages them to make bad decisions and stuff. So to answer your question, to be quite blunt and honest with you, Since obviously the amount of viewers who watch something can influence entertainment as a whole, why should we have a system that is not only gonna prevent a lot of people from consuming good quality entertainment, but also something that can create a lot of situations that are just not really worth remembering. And that's what I'm trying to get at here. So there's some things when it comes to the topic of this Christianity ruin entertainment, which is kind of ironic because now everyone's saying it's a left, specifically the radical left, that ruins entertainment, even though when you look at history, it's actually been a left who've been leading entertainment. It's this more annoying woke left that everyone's complaining is super sensitive. But even aside from that, Christianity itself has always been hypersensitive to everything. And Christianity has definitely played its role in ruining entertainment as we know it today. Okay? So to answer your question, does Christianity ruin entertainment? Yes, it definitely does. And simply put, if you want to be a Christian, that's your choice. You should be able to live how you want to live. But definitely, Christianity and entertainment should be separate from each other. And that's the truth. And this is Off the Sin. Simply put, them out. Bye.